And the offense lost their mind when he came back to the huddle because Tom Brady had run for 8 yards only one other time that entire season. He had one other 8 yard run all season long. And he happened to do it in a moment where the team needed it. And it ended up, that was the beginning of the greatest comeback in the history of the Super Bowl.
We have a very special guest for you today. He has been a friend of mine for many, many years. Best-selling author Don Yaeger. You may know him, 12-time New York Times best-selling author. He's collaborated with Coach K, with John Wooden, with Michael Oher, with Walter Payton, with Primetime. He's written some amazing books, and he was with Sports Illustrated, where he served as associate editor until 2008. He actually wrote a book with his collaborator, Dr. Bernard Banks, called The New Science of Momentum: How the Best Coaches and Leaders Build a Fire from a Single Spark. That's a hot take. Don, welcome to Glue Guys.
Thank you so much, Shane, Alex. What an honor to get a chance to spend some time talking with you.
You reached out a few weeks ago and talked about, hey, I've been on this journey about momentum, and as Alex and I and Robbie talked many times in Glue Guys, so many stories are about momentum. And so for athletes, we love to have a conversation about just like what momentum is in our eyes, whether we believe in it, whether we don't. Obviously, you've done some amazing research on it. So just give us a background of how you came to research the science of momentum of all things.
Sure. So the backstory is a Super Bowl that many of us will remember, where the Atlanta Falcons were up 28-3, right? And deep into the third quarter, the prognosticators gave Atlanta a 99.4% chance of beating the New England Patriots in that game. And Patriots are facing 3rd and 8, and suddenly Tom Brady gets trapped behind the line of scrimmage, and the least mobile quarterback in the history of the NFL. I will go ahead and give Tom that. Alex, you can argue with me if you want, but I would say anytime you've got to ask him to scramble for 8 yards, you basically just give up the series of downs and you say, screw it, we'll punt. And but Tom scrambled for 11 yards, got a first down, and suddenly people started thinking, if Tom Brady can jump in and throw his body out there like that, well, maybe there's something going on. And 3 plays later, they score a touchdown, missed the extra point because that's the way things were going for the Patriots that night. But it ended up, that was the beginning of the greatest comeback in the history of the Super Bowl. And most people turned it off because it was so out of reach. Nobody had ever come back from more than 14 points down in a Super Bowl before. And I'm that idiot that stayed up the entire night, watched it. And at the end, Joe Buck said this great line: the Patriots have redefined the word momentum tonight. Because you literally started watching how momentum changed jerseys, right? I mean, if you will, it switched sidelines. And so the next morning I came to my office in Tallahassee. I've got a group of creative people that work for me, opened up the whiteboard and just wrote the words, how does a moment turn into momentum? And I said, we're going to figure this out. Like, how did what happened last night occur? And is it something that just had to randomly occur, or is it something you can manufacture? Can you manufacture momentum?
Where do you even start to research that and come up with a thesis?
Well, a couple things. My good fortune is there's a fair number of neuroscientists who have actually dug into this idea of, can we as an organization, they call them mirror neurons, right? It's the ability for us to, when I do something good, you believe it's good for you as well. And so we as an organization start moving in unison together with a belief system that's sometimes uncommon, right? And sometimes even you might argue it's ill-founded. Like, can you really believe that you have a chance? You're down 28-3. But Brady, it requires good leadership. So one of the things that really stood out was we began the process of building a model of what momentum could look like and what it would take for an organization to actually capture it. Be prepared for it first, which is the thing I didn't really understand, how the best teams actually, you've been there many times, Shane, for a practice where they said
Yep.
down seven,
Yep.
35 seconds left to go. What are we going to run for the next 35 seconds to try to get ourselves out of it? But how great business is. I mean, this translates beyond sports. So the first thing we wanted to do is be thoughtful, right? Sports would be easy. I could do sports all day long on momentum, but I wanted to look at politics. How do you run political campaigns and what is the role of momentum in a political campaign? I was lucky enough to get James Carville and Karl Rove, two of the great political minds of our time, to sit down with me to talk about how you build it into a campaign plan. Business, we got the leadership at NVIDIA to sit down. One of the co-founders of NVIDIA opened up the door for us to work with their leadership team to talk about how they went from this middling little technology company to the most valuable company in the world, and what were the steps that allowed them to be ready for the spark when it occurred. And the spark was ChatGPT, obviously. And then the military. My partner in the book, who I was able to ultimately team up with, General Bernard Banks, his last duty station in the Army was he was the chairman of the Department of Behavioral Sciences and Leadership at West Point. So he taught leaders how to build momentum into battle plans. And so we attacked it in four veins, looking at it not just as a sports thing, but as the entire idea of momentum for an organization, and how can you actually make it your friend and not something you have to wait on.
Huh.
Alex, what?
There's a lot there. There's a lot there. I got like,
There's a
I feel
lot
like
there.
I got
Yeah.
12 questions in my head brewing. First off, let's just, in all fairness to Tom Brady, not the swiftest of foot, but I think it'd be safe to say that he's not.
His 40 time at the combine is still the
Yes,
best tape of all time.
it is. But in fairness to him, I don't think he's the slowest quarterback ever in the NFL, but definitely, obviously, not a guy that converted a lot of 38s with his feet. The Patriots obviously come back and win if it's not Tom Brady or somebody of his caliber. I think so often that idea of belief, right? And you mentioned it, it's important, obviously, leadership, and that there is belief in that leadership, and certainly at the quarterback position, you got to have a guy, right? Like, this is legendary, right?
Right.
If you have a guy that can do this and has done that, and there's that belief there in his team, then obviously these things are potentially capable. If it's Joe Schmo, some washed up backup out there, right? Like,
I don't know. Joe
I'm not
Flacco looked
sure.
pretty good,
I'm not sure that what I'm. Like the psychology of this, I guess, of the unit, the buying in and believing that this is even possible.
which is why in the model that we built, the overarching element of the model is leadership. Like you have to have leaders that believe that momentum is available to us and that have prepared you for it, and that are willing to communicate. Brady ran up and down the sidelines right after they scored that touchdown and just asked the defense, "Give me the ball back. Come on, please." And they went 3 and out. They got the ball back, and then they marched down and scored again. And it became symbiotic, right? They were believing in him, he was believing in them, and you got it. It's a belief system, is what momentum really is.
Yeah, and then I guess a couple of things that I'm thinking about, like obviously in a sports realm, in a matter of 3 hours, I think we all can see and sense momentum because of the time horizon so
Right,
short, right? Like
right.
these ups and downs from one play to the next, like a muffed punt, you recover, right? Like boom, you're right back in it. A 3rd and 8 conversion, these things that can help spark and do this. Obviously, when you transfer to the business world, any other type of world, these are longer durations. It's hard to have that momentum. I'm interested on the take, like I guess, because for me, even as I think about some of my own journey, and I really think this, and it's funny, it's almost like the inverse of momentum in some sense, but like the first step is the hardest. I've always thought that, right? Like the first step of doing anything extremely challenging, like getting going, and it's because there is no momentum, right? Like it's
Right.
daunting, it's scary.
Right.
There's a
Talk
lot of
talk about
unknown.
that, Alex. You have a multitude of surgeries, right? I mean, forget playing again. All right, you just want to walk again. So talk about that first step when you lived it. You had like no momentum, and you're sitting in a hospital, Walter Reed in D.C., and you know, talk about that first step. Where do you find the courage for that momentum?
I distinctly remember like the first time I verbalized again, like I wanted to play football, was this big meaningful moment for me, right? Like again, saying it. Um, And the first time I put my foot down, right? Like again, it was just like standing on my leg, like as terrifying as it was. When I finally got to that point where I could like try to do that, um, was this amazing thing. And then when I did it, right, like there was this great momentum of like, okay, well, what's next? And it really fed like, okay, well, it's baby steps, right? Like I got to do baby steps and change my weight. Um, and when I finally accomplished that after several weeks, right, like it was like again this celebration, and it's like, okay, well, what's next? And you obviously created that momentum, and for me, it was over like a 2 year period, but absolutely going back to like the initial thing was the hardest, right? Like saying
Right.
it, thinking it, believing it. And I didn't really believe it at the start, right? Like truly, And again, it wasn't until that I did finally get some momentum that I started to have that
But you
belief.
had leadership, right? Your lead therapist. I mean, who
I did have
said,
amazing
you
people
know,
around me, the military folks, and obviously, yeah, I had two PTs that like led the charge. Obviously, a whole team of doctors. While the rest of the world like patronized me for thinking it, kind of like, oh, that's so cute, like you go try and do that, kind of thing. Yeah, like those people there like really did think I could do more. You know what I'm saying? And like we're like truly had my back. And obviously that was critical because no, you don't do this stuff on your own, right? Like we've talked about, that's the whole point of the podcast. Like, but yeah, so I don't know, like, but for me again, like there was real momentum in that once I got going. But uh, is that obviously you went into this, Don, right? Like how do you create that? What's the science behind it?
yeah,
And
yeah.
again,
Well,
transferring it to other people.
so leadership starts with leadership. What else needs to be present to create the magic of momentum?
So what fascinated me was I for many years believed that momentum started with that muffed punt or that interception or that moment where a spark was created, right? It wasn't until I dug in and got the chance. I did 250 interviews over the course of 8 years. Ended up going into the field doing polling of 4,000 adults who, and one of the things that stood out was that 91% of them believe in momentum. But if you narrowed that pool from that 91%, you narrowed the pool to just people who had played sports, led an organization, or been part of the military. Take those three groups, the number was 100%. Everybody that was in any one of those three demographics, it was 100%. They believe in momentum. But what
I'm more interested in who doesn't believe in momentum. Like, what is the demographic of that person? I mean, good lord.
interesting, the people who didn't believe in momentum were these highly academic folks who want to
Ah,
consider all of these a series of random individual events that just you and just try to string them together is again, it's a good thing for an academic person to argue, right? And in fact, the group that actually most fought me on this was the ESPN analytics team. I went to them and said, every day, after every play, you tell me what the win percentage is. So series of plays in a row, percentages go up. That's got to be momentum, right? Now, each one of those are individual plays that have an individual impact on where it stands in that moment. You would string them together, you're making a complete mistake. And so I had people argue with me during the process of building this thing. But as I said, I started out thinking you had to have a spark. What I didn't realize is that the best leaders, those who actually understand that you can generate momentum, that it's actually have a whole series of things they do before the spark, right? It's the practice. It is building a culture where you're willing to be. One of the great killers of momentum is if a big play happens and when you secure the ball, whatever it is, and I'm jealous that you're going to get all the credit for it at the end of the game. If there's that, if I'm not willing to be a true teammate, and really believe that your good and my good are the same thing, then and we know that in any space of A dogs, any collection of A dogs, there are a group of people who, when you succeed, they consider it their failure, right? There are always those people. And when you have too many of those people on your team, you actually begin to erode your capacity to generate team momentum. And that's really the way we looked at it, was this was team momentum that we were really studying. And that's true in business, right? You watch sales teams where I'm leading the pack as the best salesperson in the organization, and then suddenly you pass me. you know, I mean, there are some places where that becomes an open door for sabotage, right? You know, how can I screw you out of something?
So you're saying certain teams have more proclivity or more likely to have momentum occur. Um,
Based on the
and
culture they build and the people they recruit to be part of that culture, right?
beforehand. They've
Beforehand,
built this culture
right?
where selflessness, the team's bigger, everybody
Team
can
is
be
bigger than
happy.
me,
Yep,
right?
yep.
I'm happy because that's where this neuroscience of these mirror neurons really begin to play, right? This is where, like, literally your success in my mind is my success. And when we are that close, and the easiest way to think about mirror neurons is that and these guys all talk about this. It's when you walk into a room and somebody yawns. What happens, right?
you
Other
yawn.
people yawn.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're in a room of people that all kind of like have a sense of we're in the same room, yawning is one of those places where mirror neurons kick in. It also kicks in a belief that we're together on this journey and we're going to win together. And it doesn't matter if you get the credit or I do. It doesn't matter because collectively we've just done something. And when you can create that environment, you have the opportunity to be ready for this spark. More ready, let's put it this way, more ready than other people.
Hmm.
And so that was an element that I didn't really fully appreciate until doing this research. Go ahead, Alex. Looks
No,
like
no,
you
I was
got.
going to say where does resiliency and or I think like an approach to failure, because obviously to like gain momentum, clearly you were stagnant before and or even failing, right? Like even you were in a trough, so to speak, whether it be, again, your team, your business. And I think obviously to go back to that culture of being ready for the spark when it happens and to like really have it ignite to something, there has to be this team culture towards failure, I would think, and or resiliency, right? Like that this will pass or and or you know what I'm saying? This isn't going to last forever. And if we keep showing up, um, we can change things.
Right. This again kind of leans into leadership too, though. It's a leadership role to say those words. It's a leader's role to say, we've done all the hard work to be ready for this moment, even if the moment hasn't yet shown itself, right? So good leaders actually continue to remind you that all because it's easy to get lost and say, ah, man, we did all that work and it's not showing up for us. Why are we doing this? Why am I up every morning at 5 a.m.? Why? And if a great leader can continue to remind you, there will be a day when all of these dividends will pay you back. And then when it happens, when the spark occurs, the very first thing that has to happen is that leader that's been saying all those words has to jump right in and say, this is the moment, right? This is what you did everything you needed to have this moment occur for you. Now let's go take advantage of it, right? So again, leader communications is an important part element of the model that we spent time creating.
Does there have to be a spark? Okay, so I'm thinking about the greatest uh, comebacks in my time. Winning 27 games in a row in the NBA, winning 22 games in a row in the NBA. I mean, I lived momentum, right? And you know, the spark of those things, they weren't apparent at the time.
Right,
Literally, it was like a made shot and like a defensive rebound,
right,
right? And so, like, how are you defining spark? After the Great Recession of '08, there was a day where the market actually, it was the inflection point. There was a bottom to it, but like
right.
no one said, "Oh, here's the spark.
There's the
Here
beginning.
comes here's the beginning." So, like, talk about like how you define the spark. Is a spark something that you only see in retrospection? What's special about the spark or that event?
There's two different ways to look at spark, and you've hit on both of them actually. Some are dramatic, right? They're the thing that in a business context, it could be a natural disaster, right? That suddenly throws everything either good or bad for you, right? I mean, if you happen to be in the home manufacturing business and a whole bunch of homes burn up, it could be a good spark for you, right? I mean, as nasty as that thought might be. But if you're so there's the ones that become quite apparent quite quickly, and then as you said, many sparks actually are only discovered in retrospect, right? It is that it becomes a moment only when you really get a chance to look back on it. But that doesn't make it any less a spark.
Hmm.
You could look at that game and you could argue Tom Brady running for a first down, right on that. But I had a chance to interview many of the players who were on the field that night, and the offense lost their mind when he came back to the huddle because Tom Brady had run for 8 yards only one other time that entire season, right? He had one other 8 yard run all season long, and he happened to do it in a moment where the team needed it, and it wasn't his skill set, but he leaned into something that wasn't expected of him, and it became for them just a tiny little moment, right? It all it got him was a first down, but 3 plays later they scored a touchdown. So it becomes that issue of you're right. Sometimes it's not recognizable, but sparks exist, and most of us miss them.
Hmm.
That's the challenge.
Hmm.
The best actually see them, embrace them, are able, because again, it might have been, as you said, you're looking at a 22 game winning streak, and you can probably point back to a made shot and a rebound, right? But you made the shot and you got the rebound.
Yeah.
You embrace, you were able to catch the momentum when it happened, and you were able then to take advantage of it, which gave you the opportunity to win the next game and the game after that, right? And pretty soon you begin to believe we're kind of meant to win, right?
Yeah.
These are, and and so for all of the beautiful science that's out there on this concept of momentum, at the end of the day, we've said the word multiple times. It's really a belief system. It's
Yeah.
the ability to create an energy that we are all on board for. And again, all is a real key word. Because the third part of the opening wheel, I mentioned culture and recruiting, is that idea of preparation. And one of the guys that totally fascinated me in this space, how they prepare their team to be ready for momentum, and there's a perfect business application, is Buzz Williams, right? Basketball coach. He was at Texas A&M. And I'd heard that he was so fixated on momentum that he actually made practicing for momentum as important as shoot arounds, as important as time in the weight room. And so I went to visit him. I said, "How do you do this?" And he said, "This is what we do." And one of his players walks by and he's like, "Alex, Alex, get in here," right? And he opens up his laptop, and on the laptop is a game. This particular game was a women's volleyball game, right? That he had recorded, had on the laptop. "Alex, watch this game." And you're watching the game, and at some stage, at 4 or 5 minutes in, he closes the laptop, and he says, "How much time is left in the game? T. What's the score when I close the laptop? And who has momentum?" And what he's trying to do is get his players to constantly their mind is constantly thinking about time, score, momentum, and how those three elements work together to give some team a competitive advantage, right? One team or the other is going to have a competitive advantage in that moment. And what he said to me was, I'm so, I'm so passionate about this subject that there are times in games where, even in the end of the game, where I may not have my five best players on the court, but I'm gonna have my five best players who understand time, score, momentum. Because we may come down, and if I've got a player who just believes he should shoot every time it's open, even if he's my best player, and what we really need to do is run the clock for 20 seconds, and he might take a shot, 5 seconds in because he's open, that's good for him, bad for the team, right? And so I'd rather have that guy on the bench and have players who understand, let's work the ball around, soak 15 seconds off, and then get a shot. And so being thoughtful about how to be prepared for momentum is a big piece of it. And from a business standpoint, there's some companies I work with that actually do what if sessions. Like, what if this were to happen? Like, what if the CEO of our largest competitor were to get caught on a Coldplay video, hugging up on his HR director, right? What if? I mean, that'll never happen. We know it. But if our competitor were to get stuck on a video, what would we do, right? How would we take advantage of that moment? What if the president of the United States decided to issue tariffs on everybody on the planet, right? Oh, that'll never happen. But if he did, What would we do if tariffs suddenly started tearing up our business model? What would we have to do? And the teams that are prepared by thinking about those moments are ready when when maybe not those moments, but any moment occurs. They're more they're ready to pivot more quickly because their mind is adept at the idea of seeing a moment and being ready for it. Does that make
So
sense?
yeah, yeah. And so to go back to the Buzz Williams example, am I correct in thinking that, like, so then again, naturally in a game and a season, um, there are going to be many chances again, almost for waves, right? Peaks and troughs, right? Like, and
Every
great
game.
leaders and great teams are better at identifying the spark when they're going to come when they're coming out of a trough and going to, obviously going to ride a wave, and then better at sustaining those potentially
Correct.
for longer, right? Like,
Right.
so that there are these things of obviously identifying when they're happening, right? And people that believe in them, and that so that you have this chance to sustain, right, this momentum for a longer period of time. But it's also this idea of being understanding that, I guess, that ebb and flow a little bit, right? Like that there
And,
are going
and
to be these
so
ups and
Buzz
downs.
works on just making it part of their mental conditioning, right? He wants them to mentally be thinking about momentum as a process that can be manipulated. And if you believe that, right, you're able to believe that, then you're open for the moment when it occurs.
Obviously, momentum is this positive, but like obviously there's both sides of this, and potentially when
Correct.
things aren't going well, even at that point, right? How do we stop that, right? How do we reverse this? How do we get a stop on defense, right? Like Shane, from that perspective, like
Yeah, talk about negative momentum. So
So we
we all
actually put
love
it in.
positive momentum. We're making money. We're
Yeah.
winning the game. Let's talk about the. Is there a spark for negative momentum, right?
So
And is it identified the same way? And do you need a leader for negative momentum?
So the bottom line is, because we understood that, we actually built an entire piece of the book on how do you reverse it if you're on the negative, if you're on the negative side of momentum, right? If it's actually working against you, and there basically were five elements that the best leaders we interviewed told us. How the first is, you're honest about the situation. Your leadership isn't trying to spin it and say we're only one play away. Yes, we've lost all these games by only less than a touchdown, right? Think about it. We're only 6 points, 6 yards further, and we're undefeated, right? Um, that can be the media's spin, but a leader should never spin it that way internally because what do the players know? The players know you're full of crap, right? I mean, the bottom line
Yeah,
is we are what we are, and our
yeah.
record is what it is, and you can. So a good leader to reverse momentum addresses it honestly, and actually talks about the challenge we're up against. But then the second thing they have to do, almost immediately, is offer some kind of a vision forward, like, and that vision can be from their personal experience. It could be something, by the way, 6 years ago, I was leading the San Francisco 49ers, and we were in the exact same situation. But let me tell you how we turned it around. And so they want to believe their leader can take them out of it, right? So be honest as a leader, offer them some kind of vision to try to look for an opportunity out. The third thing is the best leaders are always returning to fundamentals in moments of. Nick Saban, when I talked to him about this, he said, "You know what? I never wasted a loss. If we lost, I used that as an opportunity to come back, get back to our fundamentals, because that's generally what cost us a game. And it's generally what allowed us to rebuild our momentum was to get back to fundamentals. What are the things we have typically always done that we have stopped because we were winning, right?" And he said, so get back to your fundamentals. The fourth thing is amplify anything that's positive. So if something happens and you're able to openly celebrate it, I did an interview on this book with the CEO of Bose headphones, right? The speaker headphone company. Amazing woman. She inherited the job and they had lost money 21 straight months in a row.
Hmm.
And so her job was to turn it around. And they get to the third month and they barely become profitable. I mean, it's by, like it's the nickels they found in their couch that made them profitable. But she went on a campaign of celebration that we are profitable. Like we're in the black, and in that opportunity, the the team began to think, wow, this woman came in and 3 months in, look at this. I mean, she's got a plan. Let's go. And then they went on a run. 19 straight months, they became profitable. And it's stacking small wins. We were joking about that earlier, right? What are the little things you can do? And when you start stacking wins, that's how you rebuild momentum. So those are the 5 steps that the great leaders I was talking to shared, how they turned momentum around when it was working against them. I hope that made sense.
No, it does. I guess, and I'm still just like, again, fascinated by this. Obviously, for me, it's always going back to the sports world. Um, you hit it obviously on the fundamentals, but my question was like, how do habits play in this, right? Like Shane and I talk about this all the time. Like, as an individual, you are your habits, and even as a team, you are your habits. And so, oftentimes, I guess you hope that those things haven't changed, right? That even when things aren't going well, your habits are what are going to get you out of something, right? Like because you're,
I think that's where Saban was going though. Is that
yeah.
sometimes when things are going well, you
Well,
maybe start
well,
skipping
this is
some steps.
what is very popular right now, and Shane, you probably know, like, and again, even in prognosticating games, again, like I get asked this all the time on ESPN, I have to pick games, and there is this, you have this yo-yo effect, especially in the NFL, of like one week one team plays great, they drink the Kool-Aid, right? They put on a lot of their own perfume and like they think they're sweet, and the next week, right, they lay an egg and get beat. And it's a lot of teams, right, that do that, and so they obviously aren't capturing the momentum. Um, and I guess for me, what plays into that psychology? Again, this is something that good happened. They won a big game, but obviously, clearly, it works against them. The following week.
But
Alex, thinking about like, I'm the only player in NBA history to be part of two 22 game winning streaks. All right, no one else has. All right,
Yep.
in 2008, it was the Houston Rockets, which was very unexplainable because we had two All Stars, Yao Ming, Tracy McGrady, and the rest of us were just the Seven Dwarves. And we put together this 22 game winning streak. And in 2013, we won 27 games with the Miami Heat. Right.
yeah,
And people were asking us if we're going to beat the Lakers record. It was a crazy run. That was much more explainable than the Houston Rockets one in the late 2000s. And, I was thinking about all the things that go into the momentum of that. And, we almost approached it like we didn't want to acknowledge it. Yeah, you felt it. And, around game 12, you get more media coverage and people started saying, they're going to win 13 or they're going to win 14. But we kept winning. But like,
Yeah.
we celebrated it, but like, we didn't want to talk. It was like a pitcher throwing a no
You don't
hitter.
say
Like,
no hitter.
right.
Yeah,
you don't acknowledge it. Don't acknowledge it. You just want to ride this crest for as long as you can. But at the same time, like, you're so excited to play. And that's the feeling that I got every single time with both those teams. Like, okay, we got the Lakers, we beat them. Who we got next? And you just wanted to keep it going because it was
Right.
such a, when you're winning in sports, this, Alex, like the locker room is great. Your wife is more beautiful. The food tastes better. The weather, like everything is so nice when you're winning. Everyone's happy, and so when you have that winning streak, that momentum, you just want to keep it going forever. And when that streak broke both those times, it was such an emotional letdown because that high of that momentum was like, man, that was so special. I don't know if we can ever get back to that level again, like we were.
But Tim, let me ask you, Shane, sorry, Don, but like your attention to detail as a team in that 22 win streak, right? Like, I mean, you guys were in the
Dialed.
zone, right? Like your attention to
Dialed.
detail, well, you guys were flow state, kind of thing,
Yep,
right? Like it was
we
was
were
working. But then
on
again,
point.
I've been on teams that it's the opposite. Again, like Don says, like there's these teams that again read their own press clippings and turn around and they've lost focus somehow in that
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
thing.
So Don, so you said you can manufacture this. So I'm on a losing streak. All right, I'm on tough luck. I'm looking for that spark. So talk about how do we manufacture that out of tough times when maybe belief is low?
Well, again, if you have credible leadership, right? And again, we're going back to Tom Brady is a
Yeah.
great example. Would a third string backup quarterback be that credible leadership? No, but maybe the head coach should be, hopefully, at that stage, right? Somebody in leadership should be able to step in. But But when they do, it's that following that little 5 steps we were talking about, right? The
Yeah.
first one is that you just have to acknowledge where we are. Like,
Yeah.
don't try to hide it. Don't try to put sugar on top, and just say it is where we are. But let me tell you where I believe that we can go based upon some history that we have, right? Either organizationally or myself, or maybe some players on the team. And as you're painting this picture, right? And that was Brady running up and down that
Yeah.
sideline, asking the defense, "Give me the ball back," right? I will
Yep.
do something if you'll do your part, I'll do mine, right? And this is after they were getting their butt kicked all game
Yeah.
long. Brady shared with me that his ability to run up and down the sidelines, incredibly tap his players, his teammates on the back, and just say, "This is what I need of you, and I'll promise you I'll deliver if you deliver." They believed him because he had done so previously. He had the credibility. So you need to, as a leader, be able to offer some credible evidence that there is a path forward. If you don't have credible evidence of a path forward, it's pretty tough to turn anything around, right? That's,
Yeah.
that's how you end up on the firing heap in college football. I want to get fired today just to make 50 million bucks. But the idea of how do you when you're turning it around, it does require some leadership communication and the ability to paint a picture and a path. And then, as I said, return to your fundamentals, and then come back and as best you can, identify any victory, anything
Yeah.
that you can consider a win, and celebrate the hell out of it, right? And if you start working like that,
Yeah.
and then those victories start coming along, you stack a few of them, and pretty soon the belief system begins to shift.
This takes me back right back to 2001. We're in the Metrodome, Final Four against Maryland, and we're down 22 in the first half.
Hmm.
Okay, so imagine the biggest stage, like the Super Bowl. Just actually did a documentary on this very recently, talking about this game. We're down 22, getting waxed in front of a national audience. 70,000 people in the Metrodome. We're embarrassed. It's embarrassing. It's not like we're losing. We're getting wiped by our rival Maryland. And I'll never forget, the timeout Coach K call. We're down 22, and he's like, guys, we can't play any worse. All right. So it doesn't matter if we lose by 2 or lose by 50. All right. Let's go out, play our game. But just be Duke. Just be Duke. And I'll never forget that. We came out of that huddle. Nate James, as clear as day, our senior captain, hits a corner from the 3. And you could feel just the entire team just exhale. And it was just like, oh yeah. We can do this. And Maryland was really good. They won the national championship next year. So like Coach K acknowledged it, that like, yeah, this is not good right now. All right. This is not us, but like, let's go back and be Duke, go back to the fundamentals,
Be Duke.
go
Right.
be Duke. And then we started to get a little bit of run. We cut it to 12, and Juan Dixon, that dude was tough, and he pushed it back to 13, and we got it to 10. So we're down 10 at the halftime. As Coach K says, guys, just keep doing what you're doing. Fundamental. And so like celebrating the fact that we cut this thing to 10, right? And so we go out in the second half, and we go on a little 6-0 run. Metrodome's rocking. We're talking about momentum. I mean, we felt it. We're down 8 points, and we're like, oh, we got them exactly where we want them. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Like, you believe you're winning.
We're down 8 points, and we think we got them exactly where we wanted. And all of a sudden, Maryland, experiences the opposite of that. And they start finger pointing, and they start, complaining to the referees, and they start bickering, and we are like just one unit, and you just feel the belief. And all of a sudden, we take the lead, and it was just like, Maryland's like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And said, we knew that we could beat them from the Miracle Mint when we beat them from down 10 with 55 seconds left a few months earlier. So we knew like they didn't really think they could beat us, but we win that game by 10 going away. And like the spark, Nate James, the messaging from Coach K, the celebration of small wins, like it was textbook momentum, and we did something truly historic, and just like you said.
So Shane, I will jump in, because when I interviewed Coach K on it, he told that exact same example. It's in the book. Yeah, because that he believed in what that showed as well, right? That idea that it was, we can't play any worse, so let's just go out and be us, be be what we know we can be. And that's a really powerful messaging tool, right? And then, as you said, one shot, and people, the belief system begins to shift.
So Don, let me and Shane, I'm curious your thought, like even in the context of that game. So things aren't going well, right? I'm a leader of an organization or team. They're not going well. Again, this one play happens, and I identify it again because I'm looking for any source of optimism, right? Again,
Yeah.
I've acknowledged we're in a bad situation. I'm looking for a little anything, and I'm going to acknowledge it for the team, right? Like, and again, and obviously, hopefully, I have credibility and I've laid a path out, where we can go. Do I continue to acknowledge, like, and again, this goes into the celebrating fact, like, when the next play happens, it's just as important for me to acknowledge that as well, right? And the next
Absolutely.
one, and the next one,
And
and I'm
that's when
so
you start
often
saying, "This is what we did. This is what we
okay,
prepared for. This
yes,
this is who you are.
yeah,
You
you keep
This is
doing it,
not unusual. Remember that practice we did in November
yes.
that drove you crazy? It's because we wanted to be ready for today in March, right?
And I guess I'm really thinking, and I love this idea, and I never understood it when I played, but this idea of celebrating those things, right? Even
Right.
the small things, or even celebrating wins. You see these teams that have great culture, I think, and sometimes you see the parties in the locker room, right? The
Right. Yeah.
dancing and I do think that's part of this, right? Because and
Right.
if you're celebrating, you've obviously acknowledged it, and again, and I think this culture about being happy for one another, like, is
Right.
inherent in this.
In
And I
fact,
don't
that's
know.
the
I guess
most
I'm curious,
important thing,
Shane.
because had Shane looked at Nate James and said, "Damn, I should hit that three," right?
Yeah,
Like, everybody's going to point to him as the guy that started this all, but truthfully, I mean, I should have been the one that hit that three. If you had looked at him and said that, so this is the one place in the book where we actually show a negative example to make a point.
Hmm.
Some of you might remember, Shane, you probably will. Jordan wins three NBA titles. He retires to go play baseball, dumbest decision ever in sports, and he still can't hit a curve. And when he does, Scottie Pippen, who had been, Robin for all those years to Batman, suddenly steps in. I'm the man. Be ready. But that first year in the playoffs, they're playing the Knicks. Game three, game's tied. Phil Jackson calls a timeout. Scottie Pippen comes to the sidelines. I've waited my whole career to be the guy to hit this shot, and he draws up a play for Tony Kukoc. And Tony and Scottie Pippen refused to enter the game.
Yep.
He actually caused the team. They had to call a second timeout. He got into a cursing match on the bench because he said, "Fuck, this is I waited all that time, and now you're not going to let me have the shot." From that moment on, nobody thought of Scottie Pippen in the Bulls organization the same way. He lost his credibility because it was about him, not about the
Yep.
team.
Yep.
And in that moment, that negative vibe, that negative mirror neurons, if you will, actually took control. And there was a sense of, we don't have a leader anymore, because what we're stuck with is a guy who really is a lifetime number two, right? Which would drive Pippen crazy. But for years, it was a reference point in the NBA. Players I talked to, when there was an ultimate selfish act occurred, they called it pulling a Pippen,
Yep.
because it was, well enough known that being selfish was played out that way in a playoff game.
Yep.
So when we recruit people, we have to recruit people who can cheer for each other. We have to recruit people who value and are glad to say, "Nate James, unbelievable. Thanks for making that shot. Like, my life is better because you did what you did."
Oh, trust me, I was very happy. I was the happiest guy because I wasn't playing very well that game.
I guess I'm just thinking is like it's how do you identify that? That's an interesting concept, right? Like in an interview setting, or if anybody obviously is out there making personnel decisions, like how do you
Yeah.
identify that quality, right? Like
Well,
again,
one of the ways you identify that quality, unfortunately, it's often when they're internal, right?
yeah, yeah,
Let's say there's a moment, and I mean, I watched it last year. I live in Tallahassee, Florida State football. There's a big play that occurred, and half the team kind of ran out to celebrate it in the middle of the field, and several of the superstars of the team kind of didn't even go out there to celebrate, and that told you that they didn't, it didn't mean anything to them, and that team went 2-10, right? So they showed up, they
Yep.
showed themselves in that moment, but at the same time, it showed up regularly. So when you're in a sales meeting and you celebrate somebody who just had this big deal, where does your number one salesperson go? Does he go up to high five the guy, or does he stand in the back of the room and go, this meeting should be about me. I'm the number
Yeah.
one salesperson, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the end of momentum. Okay, sad topic.
The
Okay,
end of it.
you find it, you capture it, and man, if that felt good, all of a sudden the air is out of the balloon. Okay, the band stops playing. All right, and life returns to normal. So like, are there things you can do to like temper that sadness or temper that longing for that momentum? That's all you want to do is get back to that where you're feeling invincible and like no one can beat you, right?
I would tell you, I think that's the greatest. That if you didn't long for it, that'd be a greater problem, right? The idea is, yes, momentum comes, and momentum. I mean, it's momentum for a reason, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it goes, and it doesn't run forever.
Yep.
And so, what you have to understand is that if you're intellectually aware of that, and there does come a window in which it's no longer completely on your side. You've won 27 straight, but here we are. We just lost four in a row. Well, you know what? We know what we're capable of, and that's 27 straight. So we now are ready for that fifth game after and let's start another run, right? I mean, it becomes, again, it's a communications tool. Are you willing to kind of talk again about what did we do before? Let's talk about it, right?
Yeah.
What was it that allowed us to continuously build upon it? And as we begin those conversations, as we open them, really, outcomes and feedback are extraordinarily important. And how do you bring, one of the organizations I do a lot of work with is the Blue Angels. Blue Angels, in every practice, every show, with a after action conversation in which everybody takes their rank off their shoulders, right? It is no longer about who's the one pilot and who's the sixth pilot. Everybody evaluates what they did to try to get better. And they have a phrase, I love it, I use it all the time: feedback is the breakfast of champions. And so when you're using, when you are, no matter what's going on, right? Are we open to feedback, and are we open to, that's, Alex, when you were talking about teams that win and lose, it's because they're not actually using feedback, even in the feedback is just as important when you win.
Yep.
In fact, it might be more important
Yep.
as it is than when you lose. And it's, and so that willingness, that openness to be able to do it. The best part is these conversations, 250 of them over the course of these 8 years, with everybody from Condoleezza Rice to, to Coach K, to the co-founder of NVIDIA, and some of the best generals on the planet sat and talked to us. There were just these universal themes of how to make momentum, and that it really can be your business partner, right? It doesn't have to be wait around, let's hope we get lucky. If you do the work, if you're willing to do the work to be ready for the moment, when the moment comes, no matter how big or small, you're going to be more likely to take advantage of it than your competitor. And that gives you everything you need.
Losing versus learning, right? And that, like, good, I think successful teams, right? Like when there has been a mistake or an error or a loss, right? Like this idea of like, can I spin it to a learning experience? Yep. Again, like using the feedback as opposed to like in this idea of negative coaching versus positive coaching. Like I talk about this all the time. Like I had so many negative coaches over the course of my career, and most
what
of them,
are you doing?
We can't do this. We can't do that. Don't do this. Like it just, and again,
throw the ball higher, Alex. Throw the ball high. Don't throw the ball behind the receiver.
Get
right?
it out in front.
Alex, throw the ball to our guys.
Yeah.
Really,
thanks,
coach? Thank you, coach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so again, and I talk about this about like Andy Reid all the time, is he has this great quality of like, again, not riding the emotional roller coaster, right? Like even when things aren't going well, or when they are going well, again, it's still you still do this feedback thing, right? Like you do the same things, the habits. You don't like mask the warts when you win, right? Like again, you gotta deal with them and continue the same process.
Winning can make a lot of ugliness go away, right?
Yeah. So
I wish I'd interviewed you during the book, Shane, because I never thought about the fact that if momentum's working your way, your wife is prettier. I hadn't heard that line ever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well,
oh yeah. Smoke
When
show.
you're winning, yeah, I agree. The food is better. Like it just,
I'm better
yeah,
looking. I'm
yeah,
better looking
yeah,
when I'm winning. More
yeah.
importantly, good Lord, I need all the
Totally.
help I can get. So Don, so what's your advice to somebody who's listening to Glue Guy Nation out there, and they say, I'm not a leader. I can't impact momentum. So I'm just the middle manager. I'm just middle of the pack. I'm just the infantryman. How can I impact momentum on the teams that I'm on without the the title of leadership?
Here's what I'll tell you is, again, talking to all these folks, if you are willing to step into that vacuum, if you're willing to actually speak in moments when everybody else is afraid to say something, if you're willing to you can become a leader no matter what your position. You actually, leadership available is often most available when things are not going well, right? The vacuum is greater when things are not going well. And because people are afraid to say certain things. If you're willing to be that person who can step in, maybe even listen to some of these things we've talked about, and some of the ways that you could do it, um, you can you can assume a mantle that you don't that your title may not typically give you. And so it doesn't matter where you are. There is an opportunity if you're willing to say, "Hey, I think things aren't going well. Let's address it. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. Let's look for a way to turn things. Like, what are the fundamentals we're not doing these days that we used to do? Is there something that we can revert to? How can we find something small to win? What can we chase right now that if that 3 days from now we can declare a win and then begin the process, right? Alex, you're smiling.
No, I think this is super interesting. And I'm thinking about this context, right? Like, obviously, our podcast is called Glue Guys, right? And again, like inherently in that is like maybe it's not a leadership role, but these are the culture carriers. And then I think when you think about if you were to say what everybody thinks about Glue Guys is the epitome of the things you've said, it's funny. They're happy for their teammates, right? Like they don't have to take the final shot. They're the ones that they box out hard, right, for rebounds. They
They
dive for
take
the easy,
offensive
easy
fall.
calls.
They take offensive, right.
They're fundamental. Like again, they're the culture carriers, right? I guess that's how they're viewed, is that they
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily set the culture, but in some ways, maybe by obviously them just going through their actions like that they do. They do.
Alex, can I jump on something you said there? Because you used, so when I say it requires leadership,
Yeah,
it's not a leadership role
yeah,
that's required, right? It's leadership. Leadership and leadership role are two different things.
yep.
Leadership can come from any of us. Leadership role is something that somebody gets and it's reflected in their paycheck. But leadership can come from any of us, especially a glue guy.
Yeah,
There were times, Shane, that I know. I mean, part of the reason that people voted you as teammate of the year, right, was because you stepped in and took offensive fouls when that hurts like hell, right? And there wasn't anybody else that wanted to take that offensive foul, and you took it. But in doing so, that was your contribution, and you assumed a role of leadership in that moment, even though you weren't the captain of the team, you weren't the best player on the team, you weren't the leading scorer. You did something that you uniquely possessed the capacity to do, and in that moment, you became a leader.
Well, I was always more happy for my teammates than my success, right? I tried to walk the walk, the talk that I talked. And you do that in any locker room, all right?
They keep
You,
voting for you.
they keep voting for you. There's no secret. Don, we're going to let you get out of here. Our traditional last question on Glue Guys is, you're not a successful best-selling author by yourself. It's always a team effort. So who are the glue guys, the glue gal, the glue people in your life that you want to acknowledge or you want to thank for helping you to get to where you are today?
Well, I'll tell you, we've got a good group of them, Jake and Alex. I've got a group of writer teammates who work with me, research, help me get the work done that allows me to do the projects, the number of projects that I get a chance to do. I've just written my 43rd book, which is crazy. And my son, although it became my 13th bestseller, my son points out that means I have 30 failures. But 17-year-olds should always humble you that way. But the idea of like having Alex, I've got an Alex Halstead, not Alex Smith. Though if you want to write a book with me, Alex, I'm good. And Jake Udy, and I've got a whole group of folks, Mark Robson, and they've been wonderful to me. So thank you for letting me mention their name.
Well, Don, this is such a fun conversation. It's something that I never really considered until you called me many months ago. And so please check out his new book with General Bernie Banks, The New Science of Momentum. I hope you enjoyed this conversation on how the best coaches and leaders build a fire from a single spark.